Think back to the last summer of your childhood. The one where the days seemed to stretch out endlessly, where a single afternoon could feel like an entire week, where September always seemed impossibly far away. Now, think about last year. Do you remember what you did in April? Do you remember what you were worried about in July? Do you remember what you said to someone at a Tuesday dinner in October? Most of us can't. The entire year just happened, and it's already gone. If you're over the age of about 25, you already know exactly what this video is about. Somewhere in your 20s, without warning, time started moving faster. It hasn't slowed down since. Every adult on Earth knows the feeling. The years used to feel long, now they blur. Birthdays used to feel monumental, now they show up like reminders on a phone. You are not imagining this. Modern science can now prove it, and the reason it's happening is stranger than most people are ready for. Because your brain doesn't actually measure time the way you think it does. It doesn't count minutes, it doesn't count hours, it doesn't count days. It measures something else entirely. And once you understand what, you start to see something quietly disturbing about how much of your life may already be behind you. Let's start with the man who first figured this out. In 1897, a French philosopher named Paul Janet noticed something so obvious that no one had bothered to name it before. He pointed out that when you're 5 years old, a single year is 1/5 of your entire life. When you're 50, that same year is only 1/50th. Proportionally, the year is 10 times smaller. Janet argued that this is why time feels like it's accelerating, because each new year takes up a smaller and smaller fraction of the total amount of life you've already lived. His idea, called the proportional theory of time perception, sat mostly unexplored for the next 100 years. Then, in the last 2 decades, neuroscientists started actually testing it, and they discovered that Janet was onto something, but he was only seeing half the picture. The full explanation lives in the strange machinery your brain uses to build your sense of time. Your brain does not have a clock inside it. There is no ticking region, no counting mechanism, no internal calendar. Instead, your brain constructs the sensation of time out of 2 ingredients. The first is attention, how focused you were during a moment. The second, and by far the more important one, is novelty, how new the moment was. When you experience something for the first time, your brain records it in dense, high-resolution detail. Every sensory input gets stored: the light, the smells, the sounds, the emotions, the exact feeling of a chair beneath you. That density is what makes a memory feel long. But when you experience something for the 10th time, or the 100th, or the 1000th, your brain doesn't record most of it at all. It just files it under a category it already has. The information is compressed, the memory is thin, and a thin memory feels short. This is the mechanism behind everything you're about to learn. In 2019, a Duke University engineer named Adrian Bejan published a paper that reframed the entire question of time perception. Bejan argued that your subjective sense of time depends on how many mental images your brain processes per unit of clock time. When you're young, your brain is constantly encountering new stimuli, new faces, new places, new tastes, new feelings, new relationships, new mistakes. It is processing enormous amounts of visual and emotional information every hour. This creates the sensation of time being long. An 8-year-old going to a birthday party is processing more novelty in 3 hours than a 40-year-old processes in 3 weeks. To the 8-year-old, the party feels like an eternity. To the 40-year-old, the entire month blurs together. The clock is exactly the same, but the amount of experience packed into each hour is completely different. And this is where things start to get uncomfortable. Because if time slows down when you experience novelty, then the way to slow time back down is obvious. You have to keep encountering new things. Only most adults, without realizing it, stop. Consider what a typical week looks like for the average adult. You wake up in the same bed, in the same room, in the same house. You eat one of the same handful of breakfasts you always eat. You commute to the same place, along the same route, at the same time, past the same buildings. You interact with the same coworkers. You have variations of the same conversations. You come home, you eat one of the same handful of dinners, You watch something similar to what you watched yesterday. You go to sleep in the same bed you woke up in. Then you do it again. Your brain, which is optimized for efficiency, quietly stops recording most of it, not because it's failing, because it has nothing new to record. The routine feels short in memory because, in a very real sense, your brain barely bothered to store it. Compare that to childhood. A single school year for a 9-year-old contains new classrooms, new teachers, new subjects, new friendships, new fears, new firsts of every kind imaginable. First crush, first sleepover, first pet, first friend who moved away, first taste of a food that would become a favorite. Every one of those experiences was recorded in high resolution. That's why 1 year of your childhood can, in memory, feel longer than an entire decade of your adult life. You didn't have a longer year, you had a denser one. Now consider a truly disturbing implication of all this. If your subjective sense of life is measured in novelty rather than in years, then the majority of the first times you will ever have in your life happened before you were 30. Your first walk, your first word, your first friendship, your first heartbreak, your first solo trip, your first job, your first love, your first apartment, your first real failure, your first taste of most of the foods you will ever eat, your first version of most of the emotions you will ever feel. These are the moments your brain wrote in ink. Everything after is written in pencil. Which means that by the time most humans reach 30, more than half of their subjective life may already be behind them, even though they still have 50 or 60 years of clock time ahead. Time is not speeding up as you get older. You are just running out of the kind of experience your brain considers worth remembering. But here's the strange, quiet hope buried inside all of this. Because if novelty is what slows time down, the novelty is also what expands it. Neuroscientists have documented that people who deliberately introduce new experiences into their adult lives, new hobbies, new routes, new relationships, new challenges, new environments, new skills, report that their weeks feel longer, their years feel richer, their memories become denser. They are not adding years to their lives, they are adding life to their years in a way that is now scientifically measurable. The routine kills memory. The unfamiliar creates it. Which brings us back to the summer you were remembering at the beginning of this video. That summer didn't feel long because you were a child. It felt long because every day was a first of something. You can still have summers like that. Not the same ones. Not the exact feeling of being 9 years old with nothing to worry about, but a life where your brain has enough new information to actually record it. A life where each year leaves a fingerprint of its own, instead of merging into the last one. That kind of life doesn't happen by accident. It has to be chosen. The years will keep moving. The clock will keep ticking. The routine will keep offering itself to you, quiet and safe and forgettable. But somewhere out there, in a version of your life you have not yet lived, is a summer that will feel long again. You just have to go find it, before the years finish quietly disappearing into the ones behind you.